everyone. I am Tom Shalhoub, along with Molly Line, Lydia Hu, and David Webb. And welcome to a special edition of the Big Weekend Show. Tonight's story. It's all about the art of the deal. The Trump administration has announced a trade deal has been reached with China. This comes after the president hailed the great progress made during yesterday and today's meetings in Switzerland. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer detailed the negotiations earlier today.
We made substantial progress between the United States and China in the very important trade talks. We will be giving details tomorrow, but I can tell you that the talks were productive.
The president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs, and we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency.
This all comes as President Trump is set to take his first trip to the Middle East during his second term. The president is set to visit with leaders from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates starting Tuesday, as the U.S. held another round of nuclear negotiations today with Iran. Lucas Tomlinson is live in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, with all the latest. Hi, Lucas.
Well, good evening, Tom. When President Trump first returned to the White House, his first call with a foreign leader was here to Saudi's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And like his first term, President Trump is taking his first official overseas trip here to Saudi Arabia. As you mentioned, he's also going to continue on to Qatar and the United Arab Emirates as well. You mentioned the negotiations going on overseas, not just in Oman, the talks with the Iranians, but in Geneva, where Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trump's top trade representative Jamieson Greer spoke to their Chinese counterparts. Earlier, North Dakota Senator John Hoeven said this is an important first step.
This is very encouraging. Obviously, they're not going to have a deal fully done. You've got Jamieson Greer over there, the U.S. Trade Representative, and the Secretary Bessent. That's the first string, no doubt about it. But they're still going to come back and talk with President Trump and all those kind of things. But the important point is they made real progress and have a framework to get to a deal.
Bessent said in Geneva details of what the White House called a deal will be released tomorrow. Officials said it's likely to follow the model of the U.S.-UK trade agreement, which reduced tariffs on aluminum, steel, and cars. As I mentioned, there's some other negotiations going on today. Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is in neighboring Oman, meeting with Iranian officials over its nuclear program. Both sides touted progress and said they will meet again. They've already met 4 times. Now, some good news, Tom. Hamas said late today would release the last living American hostage held in Gaza, 21-year-old Edan Alexander from New Jersey, who served in the Israeli military. Israel says there will be no ceasefire during the exchange, and Hamas said that release is scheduled for Tuesday. And, of course, that's the same day President Trump arrives here in Saudi Arabia. So some good news here from the region, Tom.
Very good news. Thank you, Lucas. Okay, let's do some analysis. But Molly, maybe get your take on that news. The last living hostage is being released.
That would be remarkable, and I really, truly, deeply hope that that is true. Witkoff is expected to go to Israel. We hope that Edan Alexander, he's now 21. He was 19 when he was taken hostage, the last living American hostage in Hamas captivity, and hopefully that does come to pass. Ultimately, big things. Lucas Tomlinson there at the end of his report said some good news. And I think that is the case. For the last couple days, the Trump administration on war and peace, on diplomacy, on the economy, teasing ahead to potentially some big headlines to come on trade on Monday. Fascinating. But we definitely hope that Alexander comes home.
Yeah, let's get your take on some of this. We got some video here. Let's do the clip of Howard Lutnick on the China negotiations.
This is just a China problem right now, right? We have 145% tariff. They have 125% tariff. Those tariffs are too high to do business. But that's why they're talking right now. The rest of the world is 10%. He's there to see if we can reset the conversation, and he's at it right now. But that's the objective, to de-escalate.
Okay, Lydia, let's get your take on this. What are they going to be talking about on Fox Business about these negotiations? They're giving the good news. They're saying it's the beginning of a deal, but how much of the deal is it?
Yeah, that's what we're all waiting to see. I mean, I think you might hear some surprise, if we really have the framework of a deal and a deal actually penciled, signed on the dotted line by tomorrow. That's very fast. I think faster than what a lot of people were expecting. I'm not sure that anyone really expected that China would be among the first. We had the deal with the UK just last week. Now we're having China with just a second. I think you can probably expect there to be a reduction in tariffs. The President Trump alluded to that. The other questions remain, though. What are we going to see in terms of the non-tariff barriers? We import 3 times as much from China than what they import from us. We want more access to their market just as much as they want access to ours. And there are things that China has done that has made them not such great and fair players with this. Currency manipulation, their use of labor to make their products so much cheaper. I think there are a lot of questions about whether or not that they're going to respect intellectual property moving forward with American firms that are doing business over there. So there are a lot of details to be ironed out. I thought it was very interesting that our Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is very smart in the negotiation, kind of said, we've made great progress. He did not say that there's a deal. Other people are talking about as if there's already a deal across the finish line. So we'll see exactly how this develops.
He's
tomorrow.
kind of trying to. This is what they do. Trump kind of comes out with the good news, and then Bessent backs off it a little bit. That's kind of the pattern, isn't it?
I think our Treasury Secretary is very smart and respectful of the president and knows that there's not really a deal until the president says there's a deal. So we'll wait and see what happens.
David wants to get in on China, but I'm going to throw something into the mix here, David.
Throw it all together.
The Iran news. Let's get Representative Jared Moskowitz on the Iran nuclear talks.
President Trump has the capability, we've seen it many times before, right now to put maximum pressure on Iran, use that tough language, and see if we can get the dismantling of those nuclear facilities. If not, I'd like to see President Trump say that he will dismantle it one way or another. Let the Iranians know, again, all options are on the table.
Okay, David, let's get in on the Iran talks here.
They're actually all tied together. And if you think about even the time difference, right now it's nighttime where Scott and the trade rep are. So whatever's been done has been done already, unless they're working up past midnight. Iran, China, the deal with us. China's the big player in the Middle East. They buy their oil from Iran. They have a lot of power in the Middle East. If you think about it, their military equipment was even used in the Pakistani attack in India. At the center of a lot of this is Chinese goods, Chinese cheap goods. And this deficit has to be dealt with because China gets the benefit and the world gets the deficit, frankly, to put it in those terms. We have got to get China back on track as best we can. And Trump uses one thing which we haven't seen played yet, to the point of whether Bessent is correcting or cleaning up. He's really not. It's Trump's way of operating because Trump has told him before, and we've seen this, I'll go back to the table. And in the case of UK, he got another $1 billion on the table. In the end, he is the president. He will make the decision. So they're working as a 1-2 punch. And with China at the middle of this, and think about the Swiss, they have an embassy with Iran. They're a linchpin to that. China. There's a reason we're there. It's not just because that's the place to do the deal. It's where there are multiple people that can be involved and a lot of signals to be sent.
Yeah, Molly, what do you think is going to be? There's so much news today, right?
I know.
What do you think is going to be Monday's #1 thing that the White House is pushing?
I think they're pushing whatever it is that they've got on the table for China. They're kind of teasing that ahead and saying we're going to have the big news tomorrow. And what it is, hopefully we'll find out then. And as you mentioned, the best at forward and backward, and maybe the president has some big news. So I think that's the big one ahead. But there's another headline here. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's ready to meet personally with Vladimir Putin. And that's a whole other part of this. And this might be the most challenging part of the diplomacy that's going on right now, where we're seeing some successes potentially in Israel with the potential release of this final American that they're still holding. And in China, we're seeing the economic success. But the Ukraine and Russia challenge seems to still be one of the toughest ones.
Maybe this is where Molly is. She's forcing me to change the subject to that very thing. China isn't the only adversary making news today. Russian President Vladimir Putin is proposing direct peace talks with Ukraine this week in Turkey to try to end the 3+ years of fighting. President Trump posted today on Truth Social urging Ukraine to agree to this meeting immediately to end the bloodbath, seemingly backing off his demands for a 30-day ceasefire before talks could start. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is doubling down on the calls for a ceasefire. He says he will be waiting for Putin in Turkey on Thursday. Okay, David, I bet you have an opinion about this. So Putin is saying maybe no ceasefire. He wants to start talks while the bullets are still flying. Why is that?
You know, with Vladimir Putin, it's beyond chess, and you're not sure. The uncertainty. Russia has a lot of influence in Turkey, right down to the rail lines. The rail widths are Russian widths. Their influence there is important. Also, it's a place for them to hedge against NATO, of which Turkey is a member, by staying in a strong relationship with Erdogan. So from that point, Putin may be willing to go and have a talk, but you can never read ahead in what he's going to do. Zelensky has his own problems internally in the Ukraine. One, he's got no infrastructure of any sort. You've got people who may return from the battlefield. There's not a medical infrastructure. There are a lot of other social services, a government that's fractured. And he's got his hard right flank that he has to figure a way to get out of this, stop the bloodshed if he wants to, and find a way to keep himself out of the sights of his hard right flank in the Ukraine. So going to Turkey, waiting for Putin, puts the onus on Putin, who's coming off his victory day and a good feeling in Russia, and might make it more, I don't know, palpable, maybe more easy to find an off-ramp, which the off-ramp's been off the table for a long time.
Yeah, well, Lydia, we're certainly in better shape than we were when Zelensky was, having a tense meeting in the White House not long ago.
That's right. We've got a mineral deal signed. It seems like the relationships are patched up. I was just thinking that, even as it stands right now, I think that the way talks are progressing is evidence that the American First policy and agenda is working. You had European leaders over the weekend gathering with Zelensky to talk about his support of him, and they're phoning it into Trump to say, this is what we propose, this is how we're going to support a ceasefire, this is how we're going to support a peace brokering. That is what President Trump has wanted. He's wanted European nations to step forward and take more responsibility for securing peace in their own region rather than relying on the United States to fight all of their battles. That's been a priority. It's something that he's been saying needs to happen. I think we're seeing it happening in real time.
Yeah, Molly, there's almost too many headlines to deal with at this point, right?
There really are. And interestingly enough, Zelensky is calling Putin out directly as well. He says, personally, I hope this time Putin won't be looking for an excuse as to why he can't make it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Hopefully there's some big progress there as well. But there are a lot of balls up and being juggled all over the globe right now.
All right, coming up on a brand new hour of the Big Weekend Show. New details revealed on the pro-Hamas thugs who stormed Columbia University's campus. But first, chaos at America's busiest airport. Details of another terrifying outage next.